We got to talk Texas Longhorn recruiting. The Horns are back in Austin this week. UTSA is on the docket, but so are some top recruits. And we want to talk about Michael Terry III, the #1 athlete in America, making a very important visit today. Elijah Barnes back on campus. We're going to talk about him because he's been flirting with Oregon recently. You got Joseph Mbachu, who's committed to UF. His recruitment's been blowing up. We talk about him all the time on this channel. And then you got running back Javian Osborne, who is a stud for the 2026 cycle.
Well, Javian Osborne watched them run over Michigan last week in Ann Arbor.
True.
Now he's back in Austin. Texas is one of his top schools. Michigan's one of his top schools. Coach Tashard Choice has basically drafted running backs most years. He's recruited in the burnt orange. So Osborne's one of their top targets. Texas in good position there. Michael Terry was at Nebraska last weekend, watched the Huskers beat Colorado. It was an exciting atmosphere. He was in the front row there. Nebraska, the biggest challenger to Texas, maybe. He could get back to Oregon for the Ohio State game. He's definitely going to be at the Texas-Georgia game, get more time around the players, see how he fits in with those guys. He loves Texas's offense. Like Michael Terry had a big game yesterday where he touched the ball in a variety of ways, made big plays in a variety. He's got a great relationship with Coach Choice, Coach Milwee. Always enjoys being at Texas, and now he gets a chance to really see how he fits in with the players this week. Then come back for what's going to be a recruit extravaganza when Georgia's in town for that ball game down the road. But still really like where Texas stands with Michael Terry as they try and finish out a top 5 class. And speaking of that, let's bring in Hayes Fawcett. Hayes, wanted to ask you about one of the jewels of this Texas class, Jonah Williams, who at one point looked like an Oklahoma lean, then looked like a Texas A&M lean going into the summer officials. Then there was some LSU buzz, some Oregon buzz, but Texas got the last visit at the end of July. When did he tell you he was going to be a Longhorn? How far in advance of his announcement? Just take us through the final days of Jonah Williams' recruitment and commitment to Texas.
So Jonah Williams committed the day week 0 started. So that's when Florida State and Georgia Tech played. That was a Saturday. I believe he told me that Monday or Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. I never really heard – he never really told me like a definitive other school. But from our conversations, I know he really, really liked LSU towards the end. But ultimately, like you said, he visited Texas again and then ultimately ended up choosing Texas. I know baseball played a big role in that decision as well, as he's going to play both baseball and jewel to their class with Jonah Williams.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was supposed to visit several weeks later. He committed to the Longhorns.
Steve, I want to ask you about Jonah. Do you think if Coach Sloss from Texas A&M that, went to Texas, do you think he played a big role in his decision to ultimately choose Texas? Like if he wouldn't have went there, do you think he could have went to another school or?
Well, I know recruiting's a game of inches, so you never know how they add up and what's going to ultimately make a young man end up at one school. I do think Jonah Williams made a football decision, and baseball was just something he was going to do at the school that he chose. In his last visit to Texas underneath this coaching staff, I do think that NIL was a factor in Jonah Williams' decision as well. And but I do know that Coach Slosh and Coach Sarkisian together were recruiting him as hard as any head coaches were at the end of his process. So I think all of those things added up. Texas got it done, and they won a heavyweight battle for the Swiss Army knife on defense in this cycle. And Jonah Williams, who can do a number of things on your defense to eliminate mismatches, to playing against the run, to being a playmaker in coverage. That was a huge recruiting win for them as they try and maintain their championship level status in college football.
Yeah, and Steve, I was going to kind of like how you have Hayes taking us behind the scenes, but the Jonah Williams, I mean, at certain points, just how it shows how recruiting fluid recruiting really is. But there were certain points where you were feeling good about an Oklahoma, a Texas A&M, an Oregon. What did Jonah Williams do or say to kind of
3 schools in order? Oklahoma. There was even some buzz that he gave the Sooners a silent. Texas A&M got him to campus numerous times in the spring. New coaching staff, Mike Elko, his track record with safeties. Coach Ish, lead recruiter. They just did a good job of connecting with him and the family, close to home. They liked A&M. I think there was a lot of positive buzz about A&M going into the officials. He didn't even take an official to Texas. He just took an end of summer visit to the Longhorns campus in July, and they went from a school, he called them a dark horse, to the one. I mean, when he was at the On3 Elite Series in May, Texas wasn't a school that was talked about much with him, whereas Michael Terry, Jamie French, DeCorian Moore, those were guys that we talked a lot about Texas with. Eric Nalen and Justin Wells were there. They were talking a lot to them. The Michael Fasusis of the world. Jonah Williams, there wasn't much Texas talk. So Texas, in my opinion, rallied at the end of the summer to land this recruitment. And that's why you keep shooting your shot. We talked about that with USC and Ty Jackson, but Texas getting a massive recruiting win with Jonah Williams, and they're putting together a heck of a class, particularly on defense, and they'd like to add guys like Javian Hilson to it. Michael Terry is an athlete on offense, and go from there.
All right, before we wrap up this Texas segment, just want to get your opinion. Talk to Texas fans. How concerned should they be? He's back on campus this weekend, but Elijah Barnes, the linebacker committed to Texas, made a visit to Oregon 2 weeks ago. What should the level of concern be there for Elijah Barnes? Because linebacker is a big need for Texas.
Yeah, I haven't heard too much scuttlebutt there right now. It doesn't mean that there's not stuff happening behind the scenes, but right now I still like where Texas stands with Elijah Barnes.
Yeah. All right. There you have it. Elijah Barnes sitting in good status, but Texas fans, talk to us. Let us know. Comment section below. How do you feel about this visit weekend? Michael Terry soon, because I kind of feel like those are his top two teams. And if he just made back-to-back visits, hey, maybe he's going to be ready to decide. So Texas fans, talk to us. Comment section below. How do you feel about this class? How do you feel about the remaining targets on the board? Let us know. Comment section below.